I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. For years, my life had followed a predictable pattern. I married young, had my son early, and dedicated myself to being the kind of wife and mother who never asked for much. My husband and I weren't in love anymore. Maybe we never truly were. We shared a home, a bed, and a routine, but that was all. Conversations had turned into nods. Affection had withered into obligation. I became background noise in my own life. When my son came home for spring break and brought his friend along, I barely paid attention at first. His name was Ethan. He was polite, respectful, and a bit quiet. I assumed he'd just keep to himself. But I noticed something strange during that first dinner together. Every time I looked up from my plate, Ethan's eyes were already on me. Not in a creepy way. He didn't stare. He observed, like he was trying to read me. No one had looked at me like that in years. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination running wild because I hadn't felt desired in so long. But then came the compliments. Small things. You look really nice today, or you have a calming presence. Harmless on the surface, but I felt them like lightning. My husband hadn't said anything kind to me in months. At first, I laughed them off. Then I started looking forward to them. Ethan was always eager to help, offering to clear the dishes, asking if I needed anything from the store, even sitting with me while I folded laundry. It felt strange, but comforting. My son would be in his room or out with friends, and there Ethan would be, slipping quietly into my orbit. I began to notice the way he stood a little too close when we spoke. The way his voice softened when he said my name. And the worst part? I didn't pull away. I found myself dressing a little nicer in the mornings, applying lipstick again. I told myself it was for me, not for him, but deep down I knew. I started staying up later, hoping to catch a few minutes with him alone in the kitchen before bed. I wanted to feel attractive again. I wanted to feel seen. And he saw me. It wasn't right. I knew that. But when someone makes you feel like you still matter, it becomes harder to remember the rules. Ethan wasn't just a boy staying in my house. He was the first spark of life I had felt in years. I should have drawn the line the moment it crossed my mind. But I didn't. I let it linger. I let it grow. Looking back, it didn't start with a touch or a kiss. It started with silence. With a marriage that had died slowly and quietly, and a woman who forgot what it felt like to be wanted. A few days after they arrived, my son left on a short trip with his old high school friends. Ethan stayed behind, said he needed time to catch up on reading. I didn't think much of it. But with my son gone, the house felt quieter, more exposed. It was just the two of us now. And that changed everything. He started showing up wherever I was, casually, never obvious. In the morning, I'd find him already in the kitchen, making coffee. At lunch, he'd offer to help me cook, then stay and eat with me, talking about things that no one had asked me in years. He wanted to know what I used to dream about, what books I liked, why I stopped painting. And I answered. Because someone was finally listening. There was a comfort in his presence that I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just attraction. It was the way he made me feel present, real, as if I was more than just a mother or a wife fading into the background. Every word he said, every glance he gave, felt deliberate. Like he knew I was starving for connection, and he was feeding it in careful doses. One evening, I sat on the couch reading, and he sat beside me, not too close but not far enough. He asked if I ever regretted how my life turned out. I paused, unsure what to say. Then he said, "You seem like someone who gave up everything for others." It hit too close to the truth. I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't innocent anymore. He knew what he was doing. I should have walked away, told him to stop. But instead, I asked why he cared. And he said, "Because you deserve to be seen." That line broke something in me. My body reacted before my mind could intervene. Our hands touched, just fingers brushing. But neither of us moved away. The air between us thickened, stretched thin. My heartbeat was in my ears. He leaned in slightly. My breath caught, and I turned my face just enough for the kiss to miss. It didn't happen, but it almost did. And that made it worse. because now we both knew there was something there. Something neither of us was supposed to want. That night, I stood in the hallway outside my bedroom door, gripping the handle, shaking. I hadn't done anything. Not yet. But my thoughts had betrayed me. My body had responded. My loneliness had opened a door I was supposed to keep locked. He didn't say anything the next day. Neither did I. But every look, every touch, every moment of silence screamed louder than words. I started to dread being alone with him, but I also craved it. That was the danger. Not in what we had done, but in what we were both willing to do if given one more moment, one more excuse. And I knew that moment was coming. It happened 3 days later. The weather was dull, matching the weight in my chest. I had just gotten off the phone with my husband. We'd argued again. Nothing dramatic, just the usual tension, the kind that leaves you feeling emptier than before. I sat down, exhausted, eyes stinging with tears I didn't even try to hide. Ethan walked in quietly. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just stood there, watching me for a second too long, then sat down beside me. I didn't have the strength to pretend I was okay. He reached out, gently touching my hand. I didn't pull away. His touch wasn't forceful, it was understanding. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw the same loneliness mirrored in his eyes. He whispered, "You don't deserve to be treated like you don't exist." The words landed like a punch. I had been holding myself together for years, and in that moment, I let it all fall apart. I leaned into him. His arms wrapped around me like he'd been waiting to do it. It felt safe, wrong, intoxicating. His lips brushed my forehead, then my cheek, slow and deliberate. I could have stopped him. I should have. But I didn't want to. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to forget the years of being overlooked, dismissed, touched only out of duty. For once, I didn't want to feel invisible. When his mouth finally found mine, there was no resistance. It was soft, then urgent. Years of silence and frustration poured out in that one kiss. We didn't speak. Words would have only made it harder to pretend we were still in control. Everything that followed happened in a blur, like my mind separated from my body and left me watching from the outside. I didn't think. I reacted. I let go. There was no love in what we did. It wasn't romantic. It was need. It was ache. It was the culmination of years spent pushing down hunger I didn't know I still had. Afterward, the silence was deafening. He tried to say something, but I shook my head. I couldn't hear it. I couldn't bear to hear anything that might make the moment real. I stood up, walked away without looking back. My hands were trembling. My heart was pounding. I didn't know who I was anymore. In that single act, I crossed a line I could never uncross. I betrayed the trust of my son, my marriage, my own values. And yet, the part that hurt most wasn't the betrayal, it was how easy it had been. How natural it had felt in the moment. I had always imagined infidelity as some wild, reckless thing. But in truth, it was quiet. Slow. It slipped in through the cracks you didn't know were there. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. I wasn't proud. I wasn't happy. I was just undone. He left the next morning without saying much. My son had no idea what had happened, and I did everything I could to keep it that way. I went through the motions, meals, conversations, smiles that felt like lies. But inside, I was a mess. Every sound, every silence reminded me of what I'd done. Ethan didn't try to contact me after he left. No texts, no calls, nothing. And I was relieved. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew I couldn't handle more. What had happened wasn't love. It wasn't even about him, really. It was about everything I had buried for so long finally demanding to be seen. He just happened to be there when it surfaced. I thought about confessing to my husband. Thought about tearing everything down to the truth. But I didn't. Not because I wanted to protect myself, but because I knew it wouldn't fix anything. We were already broken long before Ethan. What happened was a symptom, not the disease. Strangely, my husband began to notice me again. Not out of suspicion, but maybe because I started pulling away. Or maybe because the guilt changed me. He began asking me how I was, sitting longer at the table, actually listening. It felt too late, but I went along with it. Not because I forgave him, or myself, but because life doesn't stop just because you made one devastating choice. I didn't see Ethan again. I don't know if he regrets it. I don't even know what it meant to him. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But I stopped asking those questions. Some answers only bring more pain. I started going for walks alone, reading again, trying to piece myself back together in silence. I never let myself believe it was romantic. I didn't justify it or make excuses. I faced it for what it was, a mistake born out of a deep, aching need to feel alive. I think the worst part is knowing that if I could undo it, I'm not sure I would. That's the truth I live with. It didn't fix anything. It didn't heal me. But for a fleeting moment, I remembered what it felt like to be wanted, to be touched with purpose, to be chosen. And when you've been forgotten for so long, that kind of attention feels like salvation. But it's not. It's a fire that burns everything you thought you knew about yourself. And when it goes out, all you're left with is smoke and silence. So I carry it. Quietly. I go on like nothing happened. I smile, I function, I lie. Because saying it out loud would shatter everything left standing. And maybe that's the real punishment, not being caught, not losing anything, but living with the weight of what I became in that moment. Some mistakes fade. This one doesn't.